Welcome back to the Real Cinema Squad. I'm Austin and that's Ty. And today we're here to talk about Acolyte Episode 3. So many of you have probably already seen this episode and it is causing quite a fuss, Ty, out there on the internet. People are just slamming this episode for not only being one of the worst TV show episodes ever made, but the worst Star Wars thing that was ever made. And honestly, I quite frankly have to agree. It continued the trend of the first two episodes of the show, which were incredibly boring. The pacing was off. But I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in and just let's give a brief synopsis of what happened in this episode. So we get into episode 3 and it takes us back. It doesn't continue what we saw in the first two episodes. We actually get the origin of what was going on here. And so we see that these two little girls, the twins, Osha and May, they live in this fortress on this planet that's pretty forested. It's a big fortress on top of a mountain. And we start kind of getting the semblance of their relationship. They honestly are completely different. One's, you can tell, has a tendency to the good side. The other one has a tendency to the bad. And they argue about everything. One of them wants to be a witch. The other wants to live a life off this planet. She doesn't want to be a part of what's going on. And we see that these twins were raised in a coven of witches who are all women. And right off the bat, we get to see that not only do they have two mothers, but they are considered the kind of these like chosen kids to like lead this coven. And so we start getting into this whole dialogue where the mother is starting to talk about the force, but she refers to it as the thread. And we get this really contrived explanation of that, and we'll get into that a little bit more further into this video of what actually was dove into there. But we get into it where you start learning that the witches have a plan for these twins. They want to bring them to this basically like coronation ceremony where they do a ritual. They put a mark on them. They basically shows that like, hey, they're actually witches now. They're going to be a part of this coven. They're going to lead. But of course, something happens. The Jedi show up. So it's Sol and Dara, the Wookiee, so all the characters that we met in the first two episodes. And so once the Jedi show up, there's this whole debacle of the witches obviously hate the Jedi. The Jedi are there saying, we hear you're teaching these kids something that's against galactic rule, which honestly, that didn't make any sense in my opinion. But it quickly comes into, well, Osha wants to become a Jedi. May wants to become a witch. They have at it. May gets really psychotic, tries to kill her sister. The whole place gets burnt down. All the witches apparently die. And Sol comes in at the end and grabs Osha and takes her away to Coruscant to be trained as a Jedi. That's essentially the brief synopsis of it. There were details obviously in there that I missed. And we'll get into the major points we want to talk about. But honestly, I walked away from that episode not really thinking I learned anything that was a revelation. Honestly, it was just kind of like, oh, they still hate each other like we learned in the first two episodes. So, Ty, a couple of things I want to jump into. And honestly, I'm just going to go to the thing that irked me the most about this episode. And this is immediate, about 7 minutes into the episode. The two mothers of these twins, they're talking and they're basically arguing like how to raise these kids. And she's saying, I carried them. And the other one's like, well, I created them, which gets into a whole thing where I feel like it's just an agenda they're trying to push of we're going to ignore biology. I know our culture like is pushing a lot of things around gender and things like that, but that's kind of how it felt to me. They were just like shoehorning that in. But from a in-world Star Wars perspective, what irked me about this is immediately you get the sense that these twins were created in the Force. Yep. Well, I wonder where we've heard that before.
In the threads.
Yeah, in the threads. Sorry, my bad. So I wonder where we heard that before, Ty. That's not something that George set up, 20-something years ago.
I've never heard that before.
Right. Anyway. And so, if you guys aren't picking up what I'm saying, when we meet young Anakin in Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon asks Shmi, where's the boy's father? And she said, there was no father. I raised him. I clothed him. I bathed him. I did all this stuff. And we got that sense that, okay, he was born kind of like a virgin birth type situation. Which led to the whole chosen one situation. So as Leslie Headland is doing in this episode and in this show as a whole, we're seeing that, okay, other people can just randomly be created in the Force now. Like that's not something that is hard to do. Like that's not something that's like the Force's will, like that, which makes Anakin's chosen one storyline pretty much not special at all, pretty much degrading the entire saga that George set up and the whole thing that he set up. I personally still give this no credence. Like Star Wars is still Star Wars, but that's essentially what is happening here. And I'm like, are they going to make these twins out to be this grand impact on the rest of the Star Wars history that we know it. I don't know. I mean, the show still has several more episodes, but that's what irked me the most, because you're taking something that breaks lore. It has no regard for what was set up before, and you just throw these like flippant things out there of these characters that we're still really have no attachment to. There's actually a quote, Ty, and I know you were talking about it before we hopped on this video. There's a quote that Star Wars Theory said that was really funny, so I want you to say it because it goes along with this point.
Yeah, so it said, there's a moment where someone asks about the father, and the witches respond that there is no father, similar to how Shmi told Qui-Gon. These girls were created by the witches by manipulating threads of the Force. It's incredible that they managed to do what the Sith, the Empire, Palpatine, Plagueis, the Kaminoans, the witches of Dathomir, the Jedi, and everyone else in the galaxy who tried to create Force-sensitive children couldn't achieve. And yet these seemingly random witches not only created one, but two equally Force-sensitive children, powerful beyond measure. Imagine if Dooku had hired them to create the clone army. A clone army of Force-sensitive kids, all with perfect abilities and efficacy. All they had to do was pluck some threads. It's unbelievable. Dooku, Palpatine, Plagueis, you're all idiots for not figuring this out. I mean,
yeah.
I'm calling The Acolyte The Last Jedi 2.0 is what I'm calling it. Is because they're just taking what George did and they're saying, you know what? I'm just going to crap all over what you worked so hard to build. The galaxy that and the world building that was created and was just so near and dear to our hearts and something that we've cherished and grew up on. And he's taking it and these folks are just forcing their agendas down our throats. And it'd be one thing if we had a gay character or, we had something else like that. Okay, they can be gay. They can be gay or, they can be any ethnicity. I don't care about that. I truly do not care about that at all. What I care about is that they're overcompensating as though they have to force everything down our throats. And it has to be known that these are two mothers and these are two twin daughters. They were created from the Force, that we are better and we are strong together and we are powerful. And it's like, okay, we get it. We get what you're trying to say. We get your agenda. It's like, okay, stop spending, almost $250 million on, therapy from your personal life, which I feel is like what Leslie's doing. And so it really upsets me, man, that we're here again. And I feel like this is becoming toxic because it's like all we can do is
complain.
And that's not what we're here to do. Like,
right.
We're here to celebrate television. We're here to celebrate good TV shows and movies and nostalgic moments. And this is none of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Talking about the agenda, I know obviously in all the interviews they've been pushing something, but up until episode 3, we really didn't see too much. And it's just like they went full force with this whole thing. Not only, but we get into the dialogue. A couple things that I wanted to point out is that the mother tells the two twins, well, you can't leave this place. We hid for a reason because the galaxy doesn't accept people like us. And, 15 years ago, I would have thought, oh, that's just a line from the end universe because witches have always been bad. People have never accepted them. Like, that's like a cultural thing in movies and TV shows and horror and all that kind of stuff. But considering what we know about this director, considering what we know about the culture now, that line was basically saying, hey, we're the victims. We're oppressed because of things that we want to do, and everybody else be damned because we're just trying to be the good guys. We're just trying to be the ones that are doing the right thing. So we have to go off into hiding. That's literally what they're saying. And we kind of see that in the episode 2 with the way the Jedi show up with no explanation of why they're there. And they completely mischaracterize the Jedi by just being these people who are just coming to take children. I mean, the Jedi never were like that. They knew Force-sensitive children. Obviously, parents and kids had a choice at a young age to go off and train as Jedi for the greater good. But
it was an honor. It was an honor to become a Jedi.
Exactly. And, there's a reason that Anakin was denied to become a Padawan because the council was like, he's too old. Like, we can't, he already has too much baggage. He already has too much attachments. He's too old to do this. So if Yoda and all them didn't even want him to be trained until they were kind of forced to because of Qui-Gon's death. Like, why would Jedi just show up to train 2 9-year-old girls when obviously they have attachments to their family that, they considered a family? And so that didn't make any sense to me. And you just continuing to beat along the side of the head that, hey, like, we're oppressed. And then even that whole chant, which was like the most embarrassing ritual chant thing. It was like a Disney sing-along of like the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. And they said it over and over, and the women are cackling and all this stuff. And it's basically like, it's like kind of like they were saying like, oh, well, we're powerful together. Like, we're going to beat all you fans because, you complain all this stuff. And, what I say to that is, you want to say the power of many. The power of many is the fandom, and they're about to leave everything you're creating.
I watched a video not too long ago that mentioned something about secretly Leslie Headland. She was on several Star Wars projects, and apparently she's being potentially removed off of some of these other projects already. And I don't know if that's true or not. Like, it remains to be seen. But they would be very wise to do that. Because here's the thing, you would think that by now, after losing, money and having the feedback that they've had on some of these shows, you would think that they would figure it out and say, you know what, as much money as we're spending on this, and then what we're bringing back, the fans, they're not happy. They're clearly not happy. And there's always going to be detractors. There's always going to be people that are going to complain about everything. Like you said prior, people complained about the prequels, even though I love the prequels and now they're more beloved now. I think people have grown to appreciate them way more now because of the crap we have today. Okay, here's the thing. Disney hires a female lesbian, that is going to then take her ideals and her beliefs and her politics, and she's going to force it down our throats in the way that she portrays Star Wars, because it's her version. And they would be smart to get away from that. They would be smart to bring somebody back in that is seeing no one is ever going to be George. No one that ever going to be George.
No, absolutely not.
And that's okay. You don't have to be, but you at least have to honor and respect what the man did and what he built, and try your best to try to stick that way.
Yeah. I mean, Leslie Headland in interviews has said that this was basically Frozen meets Kill Bill. And I can kind of see that just the way this episode was. It was a very Frozen-esque, like sisters, type situation. And, I don't know about those rumors, Ty. I actually haven't heard that. But, what's interesting to me is this, since last night's episode, the ratings have gone down to 23% on audience scores on Rotten Tomato. And not only that, episode 3 is like below like 10%. And I mean, you're seeing major media come out and say this is terrible. And so
I hope it was worth it. Hope it was worth it.
Yeah. So I feel like
that's your point across, but was it worth it?
So, but I think overall we can agree that this was not Star Wars. This did not honor the legacy. This does not give any credence to continue to watch this show. I mean, Roman didn't even join us on this because he was so bored watching The Acolyte that he didn't even want to. He didn't even want to continue. So I mean, like, it's down to both of us reviewing this now. So
you might be the last one on the next one.
I don't know about that. We're gonna see how that goes, but I think overall, for those out there that like this show, like, we're not hating on you for liking this show. Like, I know there's probably people out there that do, but we're here just to continue the legacy that has been around since we were kids, and we want these stories to continue that. And honestly, that was the biggest fail that I've seen in a franchise probably ever. So we would love to see what you think in the comments. So please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.